Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of Dave and Andy's Honest About Life. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, really well.
Good, 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 good. So, would you walk us back through the time that you were actually part of a documentary that the Weather Channel was doing, and they followed you with cameras, and you actually encountered with a group of people a tornado that you had to get out of the way from? Would you, as quickly as you can, share with us what that was like?
That's
What
something
that
you could.
experience was like? Yeah.
It was pretty. I'll share the whole thing with you. It was pretty good experience, and this is actually Tornado Chase '96. It was a documentary put together by the Weather Channel, and it's still you can find it on YouTube. It's just called Tornado Chase '96, and it was a fabulous time. I every year for about 25 years I'd go tornado chasing because the PSTP family allowed me to do that. Allowed me to go away for a week with a couple producers, a couple photogs, and we go out there and chase and find the storm system that we could learn something from. And this is mid-April 1996, a long time ago, and it was just a really good setup that one of our computer models was pointing at directly. All the other ones said, nah, nothing's going to happen. Well, the one computer model that nailed it was the one that I used from that point on. And it really did nail it. It was called the European model. And for those people that are watching and that know what that is, you can look it up. And it's a model that was run just twice a day, rather than the US models were usually 4 or 8 times a day. This was just done twice a day. So the bad information gets weeded out. So it gets vetted before it gets put into the program with that European model. And I just believe that made it more accurate. So it was fun to use that. We started out in Kansas City, talked to the National Weather Service there, and most of them were poo-pooing, saying, no, go back home and come out at a different time because you're probably not going to be lucky. Well, we instead decided to travel across Missouri from Kansas City, and we started to hear things that were going to happen the next day or two that started to really get us interested in what we were looking at. So we went across Missouri around St. Louis, then came up through Illinois, and we made it all the way up to northern Illinois when one small tornado broke out in a storm system, and that didn't do much damage. Thankfully, it didn't hurt anybody. But the next day was the day when everything broke loose. I mean, literally, it was a perfect setup, very windy. It was like 80 degrees, very humid. And we were in Decatur, Illinois. The storm system started to produce tornadoes in extreme eastern parts of Iowa, moved from there across Illinois, southern central Illinois. And one of the biggest storms that developed that day was right around Decatur. And we tracked it across Highway 36 through Illinois and tracked it to Decatur, where it took away, unfortunately, about a third of that town. There were injuries. I don't believe there were any deaths with that storm system, which was phenomenal because that was one of an outbreak that produced 50 tornadoes that day. And they were stretching from eastern Iowa across portions of Missouri, across Illinois, into Indiana. So it lasted for most of the afternoon into the evening. And it produced over 50 tornadoes. So it was a real interesting day. We did learn a lot. We learned a lot from the forecasting models and what some of them failed, but that one European model nailed it.
So you were there though. You were on an interstate, and there's a median that was a dip, as you expect to see in a lot of interstates these days. What did you do with those people you were with? What were you encouraging them or sharing with them the right thing to do in a case like that?
Right. Yeah. The people, they saw our film crew that we had. We had a pretty large film crew, and they were up underneath the overpass. But we've discovered since then, overpass is not a good thing to be under because it acts like a wind tunnel and it'll blow you out of there, suck you out from underneath that. So you don't want to be underneath an overpass. But for most of the people, we took them out into a ditch because there was no way we can get away from this thing, because it was about a mile away from us, and you could see it coming right at us. So what we did was, people that stopped, they were stopping their cars, getting out of their cars, getting into the ditch with us, and none of us got hurt. And the tornado literally passed on the other side of the freeway from us, and then traveled on. And that's the storm system that just demolished Decatur, a third of that city. And we've traveled from there. That evening we got there, and then the next day we filmed and talked to the people that actually experienced, were right there in it. But we were very close to it when it passed by us. I just remember the noise that it was making sound like a bunch of squealing pigs. And I remember that when we got up from laying down in the ditch, the side of our face that was on the wind side was all covered with dirt. All of us. It was pretty wild, because I didn't even realize that all this dirt was hitting us in the face. But it was the storm itself was counterclockwise flow, and it was hitting the right side of our heads as we were lying with our faces toward where the tornado was coming from. And it gave us a pretty good scare.
So if folks go out there and find that video, I think that you'll make "we have debris" a part of your regular lexicon. We do every time we see debris. Carrie and I, we have debris.
Yes, that was something that I said in that, and I believe it's in the documentary that the Weather Channel did, that particular snippet of video where I say debris, debris. And it's because the tornado formed right in front of us. We were watching it in a distance about 1.5 miles to 2 miles away. And then it touched down. When it touched down about 1 mile away, it hit a farm and an outbuilding and totally just blew it apart. And so we could see the debris. And that's why I said debris, debris. When a funnel cloud reaches the ground, it produces debris. And the radars that we have now, the technology, the Doppler radars, can actually pinpoint those debris spots. They can see that. So, when we're watching radar now, we can tell that tornado's on the ground because it's producing debris. And that debris obviously is massive reflectivity for a Doppler radar to see. So all of those things have really changed over the years, about how we get away from them, where we don't get up underneath an overpass anymore, but lie in a low spot, because the wind will travel right over the top of you usually and keep you safe in that low area, usually a ditch or a ravine around the road that you're on.
Did you like the movie Twister?
I did. It was very entertaining. I think it's not real life, because they would see a tornado, chase it, go back to home base, and then see another one, a couple hours later. That's just not the way it goes. When the event happens, it's all kind of in one event. I think back to the 1990s, the May 6, 1965 tornadoes that hit the Twin Cities. 5 to 6 of those tornadoes, they came through in 3 waves, but it was still the same storm system. And the movie Twister makes it look like it's a couple of different storm systems producing tornadoes. But usually it's not that way. It's one storm that comes through. It can have several different tornadoes with that one huge cluster of thunderstorms. But generally speaking, you get one wave to move through.
Well, thank you, Dad, for sharing that. I always learn something new about tornadoes every time I hear you talk about it. So thank you for sharing that with us and your experience.
I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.
All right, Dad. See you soon. Bye.
Yep. See ya.